I want to know, like, through your years of doing comedy, like, how did you feel like a bit of an outsider, or did you feel like, okay, I've had enough success with like the industry that it was, motivating for you to keep going? Like, how have your overall thoughts been?
Never felt like an insider. Never. I mean, I didn't get into the comedy clubs for 10 years. It took me 10 years to even get into one comedy club. So I didn't get into any. I wasn't in a club until right before the pandemic. I got passed. So I only had like a couple months where I was actually working as a comedian. Wow. I was doing other things. I was doing TV commercials and this and that, little bit roles on TV. But no, I never found a groove in stand-up and acting. It was like I'd get a role and then a year would go by or 2 years would go by. We're in a huge transition phase too with comedy because of podcasts and the death of late night talk shows and Netflix. It's like, it's really weird, Wild West stuff. So never felt, I just never couldn't quite get it. But people every night would be like, why aren't you on SNL? Why don't you have your own TV show? I go, I'm trying. And then I started to get fired from like, I kept losing agents because they would go, we can't help white guys. Sorry. And they would just tell me that. They would email me that and go like, tough for whiteys. And then they, so I started kind of just talking about that. And I started a podcast because two friends of mine removed me from their podcast because they said, we're no longer going to have white men on. Like after the George Floyd stuff, I go, I'm being directly punished for something a cop did in wherever the fuck it was.
So this was a result of Derek Chauvin.
Yes.
He puts a knee on a neck. And you get kicked off a podcast as a result.
Many like big ones that people reached out, and they invited me on, and one's a minority, one was a lesbian, and it was like, hey, we're ready to have a white guy on. We never do this, but we're such big fans, and these are people I supported and had open for me, and what was scary is how comfortable people are getting with just saying it and like putting this into text or whatever. So that forced me to start a podcast. That's the only reason I started it. And then
when did you start this podcast?
I've only done 26 episodes. So, and I didn't even know what it was. It was all survival. It was like, I'm not getting the stage time. I'm not getting on the podcast, all the things people say I should be doing. So rather than playing a victim, let me start the thing. And what's also interesting is then I started opening up about it, and people would go, why aren't you this and that? I'd go, well, here's the email. This is why. And they'd go, oh, take a seat. I go like, people don't even want to hear the truth. So it's been a really interesting couple of years, but having a podcast and having a Patreon has, I think, saved me from actually really quitting all of it.
So did you have like a rock bottom moment of like, what the fuck? Like, I am not only fed up with like what feels like the pillars of behavior to be in comedy, like especially like New York comedy. Was there a moment, like, was it just being thrown off these podcasts, or was it like, was that the event that made you be like, oh, fuck all of this, I'm doing my own thing? Was it a combination of that and politics?
It was a slow push, right? Like, I'm very liberal. I'm very, I think really creative people are typically liberal leaning types of people, personality wise, raised by gay men, I like just the most democratic liberal life you can have. So I've been like fighting for people my whole life. And
you were raised by gay men?
Yeah. My dad came out when I was 7.
Oh, wow.
So I had a mom, but I also then would be half the time raised by my dad and whoever he was fucking at the time or dating.
How is that not getting you more woke points? That's shocking.
Because identity is so paramount that straight white man now is straight white man box. It's patriarchal, oppressive, abusive, corrupt. So even going, yeah, but that's not my story. It identity is taken front seat. So that's what got me on this big lesbian podcast. But then inevitably, sorry.
What podcast was it?
I just don't say. I don't like to put that out there because.
Oh no, I just was like wondering if I've heard it before or listened to them. But it's like a lesbian themed. podcast.
It's a gay podcast, and
Okay.
it's like I don't care who's gay. I liked this comedian because they were funny, and that was it. But things have gone so far that it doesn't matter. So yeah, I mean, I it's like, no, that's not my story. Everyone's life is so complicated, and everyone goes through horrors in life and stuff. So it was a slow thing. It was like, even when I would get something big, someone would go, yeah, well, it's because you're white, So it's like, all right, so I would earn the things, and people would throw, push me down. I would not get the things, and they'd say, well, yeah, your time is up. So it was this slow, like 10-year, like backed into a corner thing, when I finally was like, you know what, these people aren't my friends, like,
no, they're not.
Comedians are my colleagues, but like, why am I censoring myself? And so what's funny is they kind of pushed me out, and then they could even say even more, like, oh yeah, you are that guy, because now you're standing up for yourself and defending white men. So it's perfect for them. But when I decided, like, I'm just going for it, and I don't care what happens. I don't have anything to lose. I didn't have a career, so like, it's kind of fun in a way,
There's so many, I'm finding like so many similarities. Like I felt too, like for years, just like you get something, you don't get something, and how horrible. Like you'd think over a 10-year period that you would develop friends in the comedy industry, and they would know you well enough to be like, Tyler's so impressive, like so talented. Yes, he got these things based off of merit because he works hard. Like there's not even this sense of like, yeah, you have some friends that can be happy for you and recognize your talent. They're like, well, you only got it because you're white. And then
some do, but humans are we gravitate towards the negative. So if it's 10 people in support and 5 people who go like, oh, of course you got it because you're white, that always kind of takes,
that's what you focus on,
precedent a little bit. But overall, it's just been okay, I'm not getting any of the things you should get as a comedian, the late night show, SNL, Netflix, or that. And they're becoming more comfortable saying like, yeah, we're actually not even going to consider you because you're a white man. So it's like, well, I'm not just going to sit down and die. So
that's what they want. They want you to die.
They want you to be a sacrificial lamb. That's what we're living through now, is like, it's for the greater good, But I go, yeah,
and it doesn't matter about your actual Tyler Fischer life. Like it doesn't matter if
no one cares.
And I feel the same way. Like I did not come from money. Like I watched my parents fight all growing up. Like we struggled. Like, yeah, I didn't go to bed hungry, but like I don't see any examples of like white privilege in my life. And then when you have people tell you who you are, and like, yeah, I think I'm lucky for lots of reasons, but I'm not like one of these comics who has rich parents and doesn't have to work while they're doing comedy. Like, I'm sure you had to, juggle day jobs and.
Oh yeah, I babysat until a few years ago. So I was like, I didn't tell anyone. I was like watching kids all day, like babies. Like I'd literally, someone would see me on the street with 2 babies in a stroller. Like, what are you doing? I'm like, oh yeah, this is my friend's kid. I would like lie about it. I was so embarrassed.
Like I'm a dad now. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. But yeah, no, I don't play the white privilege game. I don't do any of that shit. It's like 1 out of 5 people in this country are mentally ill. And so that means if you're not,
and 2 of them are on this podcast. Okay.
2 are on this podcast. Exactly. If you're not, your partner is, or one of your family members, or like people's lives are so hard. You know what I mean? And that's how it's always been. So, I don't know. It's kind of mind blowing where we've headed. But I'm like, just start your own stuff. So that's always been my answer. If I can't get something, I get a film crew. I go out and film a video. Anything I've gotten has come from producing it myself. So I'm just all in on that now.
And how has been? Do you think these Fauci impressions have given you like a ton of attention, like more so than anything in a while? Because like in comedy, you kind of have like a bump, and then it's like
it's a wave. Yeah. Oh yeah. It was a month of it was actually got out of control. Asking to perform around the country and fly out to events.
Wow.
And I don't have a manager. I actually couldn't handle it. And so yeah, on the news every day. I went on Fox. They came to my house and, with a studio and it was fun. It was fun. You have to ride those waves because they don't last long. So yeah, my following doubled. My social media following doubled from it, and got some new fans, and now it's just back to work, and it'll happen again, and then
just waiting for the next wave.
Yeah. The goal is I want to tour and sell tickets and do clubs and I get out of New York from these 10-minute sets that are really hard to grow when you're just doing 10 minutes every night.
It's very hard to grow, especially if that's why I'm befuddled at people who only perform like in Brooklyn and they never try the rest of the country. It's like you have no clue.
When did you start like headlining and doing longer sets?
Gosh, I think it's been like maybe 3 years ago, maybe 4. I know that I had like my first big headlining tour was last year, right as the pandemic started. I had like a bunch of cities lined up. I did the first one in LA and then the rest were canceled. So on one hand, it was like, whoo, weight off. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have to potentially not do well. But
did you set that up? Sad. Was that all from just your own podcast?
Yeah, I'm just like stuff? You, no manager, just like through the years, like I would open for Mark Normand at this club, and kind of you just remember like, okay, what are these clubs? And then just like you have to, and then just I put it all together, myself. Like my boyfriend helped me a little bit, but yeah, like I don't have anybody setting me up with stuff. And what you're doing is really great and really smart. It's like building your following and get to a point where you can go to a club. Hey, here's my following. Here's all my numbers. Then the club can go, all right, this person can fill a room. And then they meet you. They fall in love with you. They love your personality. They see you're clearly talented. But like, unfortunately, like if it were just about talent, you would have already, you know what I mean? Like we'd both be totally good by now. But
it's not right now. That's not a front seat. So, but maybe it's for the best, I think, because then you really gotta dig deep and there's a freedom to really being able to say what you want. I think once I started the Patreon and it's growing and the podcast, I was like, oh yeah, now I feel like I could actually say what I want because I'm also not worried. I'm not anticipating getting on a network show and then being canceled for a tweet because I'm not even going down that route anymore. So,
what do you mean, like with Shane Gillis? Like, yeah, fired before he could even start.
That screwed me up. I went on Anthony Cumia's show that day when he was fired.
Oh wow!
On live on Anthony's show, and I was just, and then by the end of Anthony's show, I go, I've said enough on this podcast today where someone would get clipped out, and if I got an SNL, I'd be fired. So like. That was going through my head the whole time. Every time I said something, I go, "Oh, that would get me fired. That would get me fired. That would get me fired." And I was like, "Holy shit!" It rattled me for weeks, if not months after that.
Yeah, I remember I was at the stand that night, like when it happened. I saw Shane. A lot of people there. They're congratulating him. Like he's kind of walking around busy. I remember because I was supposed to do his show citywide. It was him, I think, and Karen Margolis, or Abby Rosenquist hosting. And Shane was kind of like running around being busy. And I think Abby was just hosting. And I was like waiting for my turn to go. But then I'm like, hey, congrats. And then it's all kind of unfolding that night. Like,
oh my God.
What was it? Seth Simon who ultimately threw him under the bridge and got him fired.
He's coming after me now.
Of course he is. Of course
I didn't even know who he was. People started sending me screenshots of him, like tweeting me. I go, who is this guy? They're like, he's the Shane Gillis guy. And then I told some comics and they go, whoa, congrats.
Yeah. It's a sign that things are looking up. Like if you're on his radar, then you're doing something right.
Yeah, I was like, that's what got me notoriety because these were some big comedians who I was standing with, and they go, wow, that's great. Congrats. I go, this is crazy. It used to be congrats, you're on the Tonight Show. Now it's like congrats, some schlub is trying to cancel you. like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah, it feels good. It must feel good to finally be like, wow, like just in that podcast you did, like Cumia's show, like, wow, I've said like 5 things that could like get me canceled. But you can't live a whole life like that. Like you cannot live a whole creative career being stifled, worrying, oh, is this gonna piss off the Comedy Central girl? Oh, is this gonna piss off Jeff Singer? Is this gonna piss off whoever's booking Fallon? Like you can't live like that. You can't create like that.